Next segment, we're going to actually get into a little bit of politics. We're going to talk about Trump some. This is the Trump's bloodbath thing that you may or may not have seen this past weekend. Just really blew up. And there's, the memes out there, like all the networks saying bloodbath, bloodbath, and I'll show some stuff there. But this is, when I say this is a political portion of it, it is and it isn't. If you are on the right, some of what I'm going to tell you should infuriate you. If you are on the left, what I say should also infuriate you, because the story isn't so much about Trump, even though there's some about Trump. Don't get me wrong. The story isn't totally about Trump. I'll say totally. How about that? But a huge portion of it is about the mainstream media and how they are twisting and misrepresenting things. We're going to dive into that into it in just a minute. But keep that in mind. If the mainstream media is quite obviously being dishonest to you, how trustworthy are they overall? If they are being dishonest about stuff that you're okay with them being honest about, if you hate Trump and you hate Republicans and they're being dishonest and misrepresenting, and you find that out and you're like, oh, it's okay, it's just Trump. Think about whenever there's something that you side differently with than them. What makes you think they're going to be honest about it at that point? Do you think it's just a Trump thing, or do you think they overall are dishonest and misleading? I would venture to say this happens more often than we know, but there are some times, like we're going to see here, that it's pretty blatant and it's right there in our face. Let's get into it with New York Post here. This one is from Piers Morgan. It says the only bloodbath in America right now is the bowels of liberal hypocrisy splattered all over social media. And we've got a couple of clips and stuff we're going to look at too. But going into this article here, I'm not going to play the video, but you can see in the background right here, there's these, hey, that bar stays in the way. We see all these headlines, bloodbath, bloodbath, bloodbath. I've got a better image that we're going to show in a minute. But yeah, you probably saw bloodbath mentioned all over the place. It says, when Donald Trump became president, he quickly developed a favorite morning hobby. I wake up early, he revealed to me in a few months into his tenure, and if I don't like what I see about myself on the TV screens in my bedroom, I pull out my phone in bed and tweet something that makes them all change to breaking news and a completely different story based on my tweet. Then he burst out laughing. I did too. And I did too. There was something genuinely hilarious about the most powerful man on earth being able to manipulate the media so easily with just a casual flick of his fingers. And he's done this. That it's always the news, which of course now it's Truth Social. He's truthing or whatever, truth bomb. I don't know what they're called. Not tweets anymore. He's not doing the Twitter thing. It says, but as a journalist, I also found it very dispiriting that the media were so willing to be manipulated in this way. Of course, we know why. Ratings. The formula was very simple for both TV networks and newspapers. Take a Trump tweet, massively exaggerate whatever he was saying, and boom, watch those ratings fly. This went on for 4 years and became an increasingly ludicrous game that suited both parties. Trump got his message out, and the liberal partisan media got to gorge on how terrible he was for both the message and the way he conveyed it. Meanwhile, Trump supporters lapped up his media bashing, as did liberal viewers addicted to consuming 24/7 Trump-bashing cable news. But none of this self-serving nonsense served the national interest of the United States of America or most Americans. And I genuinely hoped liberal media and politicians had learned their lessons from the Trump presidency and would deal with him differently this time around now that he's won the GOP presidential nomination again. As comedian Chris Rock told me the day after Trump's win in 2016, when I asked him why he thought the real estate tycoon had triumphed, if someone's murdered 8 people, don't go around saying they've murdered 9. In other words, judge Trump accordingly or accurately and fairly, or deploy absurdly disingenuous exaggeration and surrender the high moral ground. Regretfully, they haven't. Speaking in Ohio on Saturday, Trump said if he's reelected president, he intends to slap a 100% tariff on Chinese cars being manufactured in Mexico and imported into the U.S. And he warned, now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it. I watched the whole extended clip several times so I could assess what Trump meant, and there's absolutely no doubt that he was referring to a bloodbath in America's auto industry. That was the context of his comment, not anyone being killed. And the media and his political opponents knew it. But that didn't stop them from instantly pretending he meant there would be an actual violent bloodbath of people if he wasn't reelected. The Biden-Harris campaign issued a statement branding Trump a loser who gets beat by over 7 million votes, and then instead of appealing to a wider mainstream audience, doubles down on his threats of political violence. He wants another January 6th, but the American people are going to give him another electoral defeat this November because they continue to reject his extremism, his affection for violence, and his thirst for revenge. I love how the pot calls the kettle black here. The political revenge. They're taking everything they can out on Trump and his allies and supporters right now, but they're going to say he's going to do it, right? Nancy Pelosi told CNN, we just have to win this election because he's even predicting a bloodbath. What does that mean? He's going to exact a bloodbath. There's something wrong here. How much more do American voters have to see? You wouldn't even allow him in your house. But Trump hadn't threatened actual violence at all, and they all knew it. Incredibly virulent anti-Trumpers like George Conway even tried to argue that it didn't matter if he was referring to the auto industry. No, what mattered apparently was his use of apocalyptic and violent language in an indiscriminate fashion as a result of his psychopathy and correlative authoritarian tendencies. This from a man, Conway, whose own relentlessly apocalyptic language about Trump is borderline psychopathic. So, of course, once he said bloodbath, the game was on. All the media ran with it, like he was saying. His opponents ran with it, and everyone did. Check this out. Like I was saying earlier, they just get on the same script here. You got NBC News, CBS, Rolling Stone. This is just a few in one screenshot. There were plenty of them. Trump says there will be a bloodbath. Trump says there will be a bloodbath. Trump says there will be a bloodbath, which kind of reminds me of another specific description that rolled out after the State of the Union. Right here, you remember after Biden spoke at the State of the Union, 7 takeaways from Biden's fiery State of the Union. Key takeaways from Biden's fiery State of the Union. Biden's State of the Union was fiery. Biden electrifies Democrats, sparks with the Republicans, and fiery State of the Union. It's like they all get on the same script, if you've ever heard of it. And I would highly recommend listening to Mark Dice and checking out some of his books because he goes into more depth. But Operation Mockingbird is something I've looked into quite a while back, and Mark's been talking about it. So I really listen to a lot that he says because he's got an ear for it or an eye for it or a sense for it or whatever. He picks up on it a lot of times when it's out there. But Operation Mockingbird is hard at work when you see all these news media folks just constantly post the exact same story over and over and over again, but slap a different name on it. CBS, ABC, Fox, whatever. You know, they're all spitting the same language. They're all reading off the same script. How independent are the journalists if they're all saying the exact same thing? And that's what I mean. You know, it's easy to say that, you know, it's okay because it's against Trump because I'm against Trump, but they're going to be against something you're against, or you're going to be against something they're against, and it's going to be misleading, and they're going to go to town on you too. So kind of keep that in mind. You may think it's okay now, but before long they'll be hitting, stuff that you care about. Trump using the word bloodbath is so over the top. No one else in the media or political arena would ever use that word, right?
As Politico.com reports tonight on the, quote, bloodbath at the RNC.
Headlines calling it a, quote, bloodbath.
Be a bloodbath. Not only is it going to be a bloodbath, but after they leave New Hampshire, it's a bloodbath on her home turf. That's really tough.
Trump has left a lot of corpses in his wake. I mean, we can count the bodies as part of the, quote, MAGA drive to take over Maricopa County. And the headline refers to it as an impending bloodbath.
Columnist Charles Blow has a new piece for the New York Times entitled A Biden Bloodbath.
2018 midterms, you can bet that they 100% are fearing a slaughter. In fact, the word bloodbath and massacre come up frequently.
The Republican Party will be destroyed. It's going to be a bloodbath.
There's going to be a bloodbath one way or the other.
Bloodbath for Bernie Sanders.
It's been a bloodbath there, shaping up to be a bloodbath.
Head off a bloodbath in next year's crucial midterm.
Off-year elections are often a bloodbath.
Yeah, they've been saying bloodbath for the longest time, just like fight like hell. If you remember, they went after Trump saying fight like hell was a call to action for January 6th. But there's been, and I think it was Crowder did a really good deep dive on it. So many politicians and news media saying fight like hell, fight like hell, fight like hell in tweets or in person or renditions and different versions of that elsewhere. And no one said a thing. It wasn't a big deal until Trump said it, right? And then even the State of the Union from Biden this past month, guess what he said? Fight like hell. And no one said a thing. Not one person had a complaint about it. I mentioned it in my State of the Review recap. I mentioned it. I called it out. I noticed it. But none of the media had a hard time with fight like hell when it came out of anybody else's mouth but Trump. That is one of the things, again, that Steven Crowder and the guys over Louder with Crowder always point out. It's not just that the laws and things are fair as far as how the game is played, but it's the hypocrisy. Is it even? Are things carried out evenly? If the left does it and the right does it, are they held to the same standard, or are there different standards depending on who does what? My dog is licking himself so loud right now. I don't know if the mic's picking it up, but there's nothing going on with this other hand. All right, let's check out another video.
If I get elected, now if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole. That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country.
That statement sounds pretty bad. Trump made it during a rally speech in Ohio over the weekend. And if you were to just hear that portion of his statement, you would assume that he was calling for a bloodbath should he fail to get elected in 2024, the general election. Well, the media, unfortunately, with the help of the Democratic Party, has actually done a fine job completely taking Trump's speech at this Ohio rally out of context to make it seem like he said something that he didn't actually say. And the bloodbath narrative that's playing out in the media is not only dishonest. After the full context was made apparent to the Trump critics, they doubled down.
He's talking about a bloodbath for America. It's laid out in the terms of it. And these idiots on Twitter, these idiots on cable news, these idiots on Sunday shows going, well, yeah, president, you know, he was talking only about the auto industry, and this is one more. It's just, let me say that at 6:15 a.m. It's just, he knew what he was doing. We're not stupid. Americans aren't stupid. He was talking about a bloodbath. Sometimes a bloodbath means a bloodbath. And when he finishes by saying, and that's just going to be the least of it, seriously, these people may be stupid. We're not.
There really is something rich about Joe Scarborough calling everyone else stupid as he continues to push a completely manufactured and fake narrative about what Trump said during that speech.
Not gonna lie, really shocked that came from the Young Turks. But you know what? Hats off to those guys over there, Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparin, who's looking good. How you doing, girl? Just kidding. But no, it's true. I mean, even people on the left are calling out folks on the left, the media on the left. I mean, it's obvious. It's blatant. It is a lie. It is not a misinterpretation. It is not a misspeak. It's not something they had to kind of figure out. It was black and white. If you listen to the full context, and that's the other thing, is every time they quote them, they only quote that one portion. It's going to be a bloodbath, and that's just the start of it, or there's going to be more, whatever it was, however it ended. But they never played the full clip, just like all the lies about, you know, there's good people on both sides when he said that. And he specifically said, I'm not talking about, you know, the neo-Nazis and the white supremacists. I'm talking about the other people. Or when he said, you know, we're going to go and we're going to march on January 6th down to the Capitol and have our voices heard peacefully and patriotically. They don't ever play that portion. The news media, the mainstream media is so freaking dishonest that they are more into the shock value and the breaking news. Everything is breaking news, so they can keep you hooked in, locked in, because more and more people are tuning out and watching people like, I won't say me, because there's not a lot of people that watch me yet. And there may not ever be. That's fine. But you go look at people again, like Steven Crowder, The Quartering, Tim Pool, Mark Dice, Don't Walk, Run, so many other productions that are out there that are getting tons and tons of views, and their viewership is increasing because it's pretty obvious that we're significantly more honest. We're going to be biased. All of us are going to be biased in our own ways for sure. And I'm going to make my bias known right off the cut. I always do. I'm significantly more conservative than liberal, but I do try to look at things down the line, to be honest with you. Not only that, but something else that I do, and I know Steven Crowder over at Louder and Crowder does it, and some other folks do it too. We're going to make our sources known. So anytime you hear me quoting something, using a video, reading an article, the links to those are always going to be down in the show notes and the descriptions down below. You can always go and read behind me, make sure I'm not taking something out of context. And that's something that the news media, the mainstream media, does not do for you. They will deliberately cut portions of stuff, take it out of context, present it to you like the internet doesn't exist and like the full clips don't exist. In fact, the whole bloodbath thing, one of the first people to post a full video was Elon Musk on Twitter when it was getting blown out of proportion. So, hats off to my boy Elon. Elon's out here killing it on Twitter, killing jobs too. Don Lemon, but yeah, hats off to the Young Turks. I'm really shocked to see that it came from them. And we're going to look at this other article here. I was actually looking at the podcast of the Lotus Eaters. If you don't watch them, they're good. They are very sophisticated folks from across the pond that would probably lower their IQ by at least half if they ever had a conversation with a country boy like me. So they are very sophisticated, well-spoken, well thought out, and they covered this article. I'm not going to go into the entire article here, but there was one thing they said, and I was kind of passively listening to it at the time, but as they were reading it, and this is a lot of scrolling, so don't get sick on me, but as they were reading it, there was one thing that was said that I thought differently of. Sometimes you can hear something and have a different spin on it, right? Kind of like the bloodbath, I guess. But right here, this us versus them, it says he's always been funny. The author of Demagogue for President, the rhetorical genius of Donald Trump, told me branding and framing his foes in a way that undermines their credibility and reaffirms the us versus them polarization, all under the guise of just joking. Practically every joke is an in-group and out-group joke, and laughing at the joke is a sign of loyalty, yada, yada, yada. If there's a sign of loyalty for laughing at jokes, look no further than the State of the Union, and that is both sides, whether it be a Democrat president and all the Democrats cheering them on, or Republican president, all the Republicans, you know what, they're so full of it. No one deserves all those applause unless you're actually accomplishing something. And let's be real, when's the last time somebody actually accomplished something in that office that was that noteworthy? Except Trump did pretty good. But us versus them, it speaks to the us versus them right here. Excuse me. When it mentions it, it doesn't mention it necessarily in the way that I'm going to present it right here. So bear with me. There's something that came to mind when I heard this, right? When most Democrats say us versus them, they're talking about Democrats against Republicans, right? The same is true for most Republicans. When the mainstream media says us versus them, they also mean the Democrats versus Republicans, because of course they work for the Democrats for the most part. But when Trump says us versus them, go back and listen to his speeches. Go back and listen to how he says it, who he's saying it to, what he follows it, the context. Again, the context in which he says it. He is talking about red-blooded American citizens against the corporate media, sold-out politicians, and an overall corrupt government. And that's what connected to his crowd. That's what connected to his voters, right? He said before that they're coming after you, but I'm in the way, I think is the way he said it. And I think that's entirely true. He wasn't wrong there. This is why he continues to get so much support from voters, because we finally have someone powerful that is stepping in for us, on behalf of us, against the machine that is out to get us. When you look at the news media and the politicians, left or right, they are in it for them. They are in it for them, whether it's for their ratings, their paycheck, their side hustle deals that they're working on. I mean, how many jobs do you know where you can go in making tens or maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars, but end up becoming a multi-millionaire? And then how many people want to really work into their 80s, into some of the hardest jobs you can imagine? I mean, we did an article not long ago where they were saying that some of the politicians says it's not so fun anymore. It shouldn't be. It should be hard work. The money that you make in that office should be enough to keep you from going corrupt and to subsidize you for spending time away from your other job, your other means of income, not to make you a multimillionaire many times over and over again. But that's why they hate Trump, because Trump is standing up against them. You know, don't get me wrong, he comes from that world. And that's why it's shocking. Dave Chappelle said it. To have somebody come out from their house, that they, the elites and stuff, all work together in, and come out and say, hey, we're screwing you guys over, and I'm going to end it and help you guys out. We hadn't heard that before, and we haven't heard that since. So in 2024, he's going to be on the ballot again against Biden, and the media is hard at work right now, making sure that the media, not only that, but the Biden administration, the other politicians, the court systems, everybody is out against him to keep him out of there. Ask yourself, why are they fighting so hard against Trump? Is it because he's such an evil dictator that did such awful things? Or is it because he's coming in there like Tyson, getting in the ring to fight them? Not us, them. That's why they don't want him there. That's why they want to keep him out. Because when he steps in the ring, they're screwed. And they know that because they screwed up last time. Bad enough that he's going to come back and get him even worse this time. He tried to clear the swamp or drain the swamp, whatever it was. And he did a pretty good job. But there's still some crocodiles, some gators, and snakes up in there. So I'm hoping he can get back in there and knock it out again. That's just my hopes. What about you?
Hey guys, thanks for checking out this clip from the Morning Mayhem. Remember, this is just a portion of the full show that comes out every Friday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. If you hadn't already, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the full shows or these tasty little nuggets.